Hello Musici, let's continue our journey together with Niedt in Niedt and the Tour bass, basso continuo, the first part of the musical guide. Let's continue from chapter 6. Let's go.
Chapter 6, some general rules to observe when playing the thorough bass. Rule 1. The written thorough bass is played with the left hand alone, but the other voices, whether indicated by figures or not, are played with the right hand. The right hand.
There is a footnote. Let me see. Bach changes this rather limited rule. I agree. The left hand playing the bass and the right hand playing the figures or unfigured voices. 2. The left hand may play together with the right hand the other voices as well. I agree. 1 is reminded that Niedt is attempting to present the most simple and clear way for beginners to approach thorough bass playing. Niedt would probably agree with Bach that the thorough bass is actually shared between the hands when played by more experienced performers. Yes, so we can play the thorough bass with the left hand as well. Of course. The right hand
should stay in the 2-foot octave, or go no higher than E2, or at the very highest, furthermore, it should not go lower than an org. 6 and thirds
lower
may
than
go
A or G, not than a org. So the right hand should stay in the 2-foot octave. Probably means 1 foot, 4 foot, 2 foot, and no higher than E2. Probably is talking about this, or at the very highest F. Furthermore, it should not go lower than A or G, not lower than here, the realization. So the right hand basically has this range. Rule 3. Sixth and thirds may go up
and down together as often as one wishes, as long as a figure above does not prohibit this.
Yes.
3.
Parallel third
The
and
third
sixth are always good.
Is sounded along with the figures, except where prohibited by the second and fourth.
Yes, that's a very interesting thing. When we have so when there are numbers in figure bass, we should always put the third, unless there is a second or a fourth. In those specific cases, for example, so we should not play the third, unless it is written. For example, we may find 4-3. In that case, it means we have to play the fourth and the third, the fourth, the third, and in addition, there's even the sixth. But these are things we'll see together. We'll make a table and show you a table of a good way of understanding basso continuo after these rules. Now, rule 5.
Rule 5. 2/5 and 2 octaves must not follow one another, for this is a vice and sounds bad. To avoid this, there is an old rule that the hands must at all times move contrary to each other, so that when the left hand goes up, the right hand goes down, and again when the left hand goes down, the right hand in the descant must go up.
True, this rule is true. At the same time, it's quite limiting. You have to, so the expertise consists in understanding the context. The use of contrary motion to avoid parallel fifth and octave is reiterated and illustrated by Bach in his chapter 10, example 1. Okay.
When the basso or bassett goes up high, the right hand must follow. The consonances and dissonances are played along with the bass in the same octave.
I'm missing something. In order to avoid
2/5 and 2 octaves, the best choice is to get help from the sixth and thus obtain a rearrangement of tones.
In order to avoid 2/5 of 2 octaves, the best choice is to get help from the sixth. Probably it's talking about this. What does it mean? Arnold translates rule 6 as follows. To avoid octaves, 2 octaves and 2/5, the best plan is to invoke the aid of the sixth and use it in alternation. Arnold interprets. I don't know who is this Arnold. I don't think Arnold Schwarzenegger was. Arnold interprets this to mean that a first inversion triad is to be inserted between the two different offending chords. He observes that this rule would seem to apply to composition, eventually admits that it seems hardly possible that this was meant. Need is perhaps suggesting that one of the two chords in the root position be rearranged into first inversion. So, how to avoid? Probably to avoid parallel octaves, we can do this. Where we have 8, 6, 8, 6, 8, 6. Yes. And so, with the harmony, 8, 6, 8, 6, 8, 6, 8. And with the fifth, 5, 6, 5, 6, 5, 6. Makes sense. Would you like to compose music like a musicus of the Renaissance or Baroque? Imagine a custom-made path with a mentor guiding you step by step. No confusion, no abstract theory, just real music. Partimenti, counterpoint, cadences, fugues, solmization. Each month I work with a small number of musicians in a one-to-one program designed for complete beginners, experienced musicians seeking a clear method, anyone who wants to truly live early music, not just study it from the outside. Want to apply? Send me a message through the form at this link and tell me who you are and your background, what you already know and your current skill, where you would like to go, your goals. I reply within 24 hours, and if it's a good match, let's begin the journey together. Rule 7.
When the basso or bassitgen goes up high, the right hand must follow. The consonances and dissonances are played along with the bass in the same octave in which the bassitgen is written.
Yeah. So if, for example, the bass is in the regular place, you're going to play the dissonances here. But if the bass goes up, in that case, you have to play dissonances in the same octave, as you can see, instead of here. But it's because the bass is going up very, very high. Rule 8.
Rule 8. If the singer or instrumentalist sings or plays the figures written above the thorabass, then it is really not necessary for the organist to play them as well. Instead, he need only play the thirds as he deems appropriate. Or, if he wishes to do something more elaborate, then he may follow his fancy.
Very interesting. If the singer or instrumentalist sings or plays the figures written above the thorabass, then it is really not necessary for the organist to play them as well. Instead, he needs only to play the thirds as he deems appropriate. So for example, if you have a 3-5-8 harmony, and if the singer is singing a third, could be very disturbing to play the third, because maybe the singer wants to play a very pure third, and you're going to have, maybe you have a Vallotti temperament on the keyboard, and the fact is that it's not very well intoned. In that case, you can play just the fifth and the eighth, and the singer will sing the third. Mi, fa, sol, la, re, mi, fa. I was singing 5, 6, 8, fa, 5, 5, 6, 8. It works. It's not really necessary to play 5, 6, 8 if it is sung or played by the instrument. Then rule 9.
In rule 9, the figures written above each other are struck at the same time, but when they follow one another, they are played in proper order.
Yeah, that's a very important rule. The most idiomatic case is when this is the 6-5. If we have a note, imagine a C, where the 6-5 is written that way, This means that we have to strike the sixth, the fifth, and even the third vertically with the sixth and the fifth and the sixth and the third. But if we have the same notes, see where 5 and 6 are written horizontally consecutive, that way we have to play them consecutively that way with addition of the third, for example. Or if was written in 6 and 5, we're going to play that 6 and 5 easy. How one should play a simple third bass which requires no figures. Now, before this, I want to show you a very useful table I came up with in order to have all the figures of figure bass. Now, we can. What is Tianzi grid? Let's see. Okay. So the basic notes in our figure bass are the octave, the fifth, and the third. What does it mean? It means that our bass, so the bass, the note we're going to be playing the bass, is always 1, because it's the bass itself. So we could say that the bass is in unison with itself. Now, it's not necessary to write 8, 5, and third, because if you find any notes without anything, any figures, you're going to play a 3-5-8. Then the position may change. It could be 3-5-8, 5-8-3, or 3-5-8, or 3 or 8-3-5 for sure. So, how to correctly write the figure bass? Let's say that instead of a 3-5-8 harmony, we want a sixth. In that case, it's just enough to write sixth. Why? Because we have to write a sixth which goes at the place of the fifth, and then the octave is still present and the third is still present. So if we want a sixth, we should write the sixth at the place of the fifth, and we have to write it explicitly. The same thing happens with a 6-4. So if we have this 4-6 harmony, we have to write the sixth at the place of the fifth and the fourth at the place of the third. The octave is not necessary to be written, because you can double the octave without any problem. But in general, let's say that we can double always the bass without any problem an octave higher. Then let's say that we have a 4-3 harmony with the famous 4-3 suspension. In that case, we have to write the 4-3, which means that at the place of the fourth, we're going to write 4 and then 3. Then it is not necessary to write the fifth, because it's implied basically. So we're going to have this the fifth and the octave, the fourth then resolve into the third. Let's take another harmony. Let's say that we want the 7-6 suspension. So we may like to have 7-6, and we have to write 7-6 at the place of the fifth, because the seventh is a suspension of the sixth, which takes the place of the fifth. And so the third, it's not necessary to be written, as well as the octave, because the octave can always be doubled. Then let's say that we have a 9, like a 9-8. In that case, the 9th takes the place of the octave. Yes, it does. And so the other notes are the fifth, which is implied, and the third. So we have to explicitly write the 9th, 5-3-9-8, and with its resolution, so you'll probably find something like that, 9-8. Then there is something else. For example, we have the 6-4-2 harmony. How does it work? The 6-4-2 is very interesting, because we have to, so at 3-5-8, let's say 8-3-5. At the place of the 8, we write the 9th, or in that case, we write 2. 2 or 9th are the same interval. At the place of the fifth, we have the 6th, and at the place of the third, we have the 4th. So in that case, we have to write all the three numbers. Then let's do another case, the 3, 4, 6. That's much more interesting because the third and the fourth, they coexist together. So the octave is not a problem, it can be implied. We have the sixth, and the fourth and the third, they work together. So they are written together, because if we write the fourth alone, we are taking the place of the third. If we don't write the fourth, we are not supposed to play it. So in order to say play them together vertically, we write them together in that line, in that point. The same thing happens with another chord, the 6-5 chord, where the octave can easily be doubled without any problem, as a fifth voice, of course. But we have the sixth and the fifth together. So because the sixth usually takes the place of the fifth, and if we write the sixth alone, we won't play the fifth. If we write the fifth, we won't play the sixth. We have to write them together, and actually the third can be implied as well. Now let's arrive to the seventh. The seventh is a quite interesting chord. I'm not talking about the suspension 7-6, but as a seventh, which can resolve to another position. Remember that the octave can always be doubled. The octave can always be doubled without any problem. So with the seventh chord, we can have the seventh at the place of the octave. Okay, even though remember that the octave can always be doubled. So we can have the seventh with the octave as well. But the third and the sixth, the fifth and the third are implied. So any figure-based number you find in music is somewhat arriving from this table, is something arriving from this table, which is very useful because this way you ask yourself, what number is this figure taking the place of? And then you'll have the perfect answer for every situation. So next chapter, chapter 7, how one should play a simple thorough bass which requires no figures.
If nothing is written above the thorough bass, then only the consonances, namely the third, fifth, and octave, are struck. One should heed the first rule of the preceding chapter.
Yes, what we have said before. Now,
that the right hand must not go higher than E2 or 2, and not lower than A or G. Take, for example, this simple bass.
Here we have it, simple bass.
Here then, one plays the consonances with the right hand in the discant in the following manner.
Okay, here it's useful when you practice figure bass that you do several things. One of the things consists in playing the intervals, the numbers, as you struck them. 8, 3, 5, pay attention, the first note, the tenor, struck the tenor together with the bass. 8, because the bass itself is 1. 8, 3, 5, 3, 5, 8, 8, 3, 5, 5, 8, 3, 3, 5, 8, and if you sing them, it's even better. 8, 3, 5. Another thing you can do consists in playing this, and as you play, this time you play all the notes together, you sing one single voice with the interval. For example, 8, 3, 8, 5, 3, 8. You build a connection in your mind between the intervals you play, the sound you hear, and the fingers. Or the alto, 3, 3, 5, 3, 8, 5, 3. Or the soprano, 5, 8, 5, 3, 8, 5. And then you can sing it with solmization. So, fa, mi, fa, mi, re, mi, fa, re, mi, sol, 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 la, sol, sol, or ut, 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 re, ut, ut. Here it is.
But one is not required to play this in the same way all the time. Instead, the lowest voice of the right hand, which would be the tenor in a four-voiced setting, can be made into the highest or discant voice. Therefore, I can play, as an example, the preceding bass in this way.
So, this is the point. Here, we had, let's use three different colors, 8, 3, and 5. Okay, so now the 8th is placed an octave higher, so the tenor is transposed an octave higher and is now the soprano, and so we have the 5th, which was red in the middle, and we have another position, 3, 5, 8. That's why it's useful then to say 3, 5, 8, 5, 8, 3, 3, 5, 8, 8, 3, 5, 5, 8, 3, 3, 5, 8. Or by playing the alto.
Or by playing the alto, which is the middlemost voice high in the discant, still another variation is brought about, although the same notes are used.
Which are like the three positions in the rule of the octave. Now the alto is transposed, so this note, the third, the green voice, now it's at the top, 3. And then we have the 5th in the middle and the octave here. And we can say 5, 8, 3, 8, 3, 5, 5, 8, 3, 3, 5, 8, 8, 3, 5, 5, 8, 3. This way.
These few notes can also be varied, and this can be done in all third-basses and chorales, in such a way that the consonances in the discant, which are usually struck at the same time with the right hand, are divided and played one after the other, starting from the bottom note of the right hand. In this instance, from a half note are made 2 quarters or 4 eighths, and this is called broken. This last pattern, being the best, is made clear through an example.
Okay. So instead of playing these 4 notes together, we can even play the broken chord. Let's imagine that we have a singer which is singing a chorale which is sol, sol, la, sol, 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 la, sol, fa, mi, do. Sol, 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 la, sol, fa, mi, do, mi, do. This can be useful to have something more interesting in the accompaniment. Or in 3/4 time, sol, 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 la, sol, fa, mi, do. Or can vary the bass in the same way. So you can say, instead of varying, that's very interesting, instead of changing the melody, you make variations in the bass. Let's say that in order to avoid problems of parallel fifth and parallel octaves, the first note is a rule, let's say a very practical rule, but the first note and the last note of a group should be the same. Why? The first note in order to preserve the correct vertical harmony, and the last note in order to preserve the connection, this connection, as if it were from the first note. This is the wisest way to do that. Then, if you do this, you have to know that you can do it because it's contrary motion. But the first time you do it, make sure that the first note of your figures and the last note of your figuration before the next chord are the same note. Do, 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 fa, sol, do, fa. Or in triple time, do, 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 so, do, to, ta, ta, to, ta, tom. This way, tan, 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 tan. They are exactly the same within the bar.
The above example, in which I demonstrated the various possibilities for playing, can be diligently followed and studied by an eager learner. I am not speaking to accomplished masters here. He can also examine how the harmonic triad occurs on each note. And if he practices this on each tone, or in all keys tonen, he will soon be skillful, although at playing the thorough bass. Yes, indeed, he will lay a solid foundation for anything that is required from any bass, be it preludes, fugues, chaconnes, allemandes, courantes, sarabandes, gigues, even minuets, and more. Showing this will be postponed until we are more skilled with the thorough bass. When I see that this work of mine pleases the kind music friend, then, with God's help, such a treatise in a second part shall soon follow.
When I say that this work of mine pleases the kind of music, friend, then, with God's help, such a treatise in a second part shall soon follow. In this second part, Niedt illustrates how to compose all the genres here cited, with exception of the fugue, which is included in chapter 10 of the present part. Okay.
The following example is given so that one can see and hear how fifths and octaves, where two or more follow one another, do not fit well together but sound bad, even though they are perfect consonances. This is incorrect and false. This is correct and must be so played.
So the wrong mistake here, it's very bad because there are parallel fifths and octaves. So octaves with the bass and 12th with the soprano, then there are 15th, so octaves and 12th. And even that way, 8, 8, 5, 5, as you can see. Now, is there a way to do this? Yes, to fix this contrary motion, especially when the bass is rising a step. When the bass is rising a step, we need contrary motion. So the trick consists in using contrary motion. Why? This is part of another rule. I don't know if he's going to talk about this rule here. No, but I'll tell you right now. The point is that when the bass leaps up, I need a piece of music to show you that. Let's do copy and paste from this page. Copy. And let's paste it there. The point is, when we have the bass leaping a third up or a sixth up, but also we can even do a sixth down, which is its inversion, but even a sixth up, a sixth up or a third down, so when the bass is leaping up a third, down a sixth, or up a sixth, or down a third, and we could more easily say up and down a third, or up and down a sixth, and we are only using 3-5 harmony, 3-5-8 harmonies. We have two common notes. So the best thing to do indeed consists in keeping those two notes in the same two voices. The same here. In the next example, the same two voices will be E and C, and we have to change G to A. Sol, La, this way. Two common notes. When the bass leaps up a fifth, which is the same to say down a fourth, or up a fourth, which is the same to say down a fifth, in that case, we have one common note. So a fifth up, or a fourth down, or a fifth or a fourth down, a fourth up, which is a fifth down. So we can say when the bass is leaping up a fifth or down a fifth, or up a fourth or down a fourth, there's only one common note. And that common note should be, let's say, at least at the beginning of your practice, if you're a beginner, preserved in the same voice, played in the same voice. So here the common note is G and G. Here the common note is C and C and C. Why do I say this? Because here that's a fifth. Yeah, there's a fifth. Then it's an octave. Here it's a fifth, and then it's an octave. Here it's an octave, then it's a fifth. Here it's an octave, and here it's a fifth. The other two voices, depending on where we are playing them in what voices, they should move to the closest note in order to complete the other numbers. Here we have the octave, here we have the third, so the octave will move to the third, and the third will move to the fifth. The same here. Let's change the positions just to have more variety. For example, we have this in the soprano, so the third will move down to the fifth, and the fourth will move down to the third. Now, in this other example, if we imagine to have the octave as our soprano, we have the third, the fifth, and the third. The fifth will move to the third, and the third will move to the octave this way. But can even happen that way. So the third moves to the octave, and the fifth moves to the third, so that we have the three numbers of the radix of the triad. Okay. Then there is a last example, which is so just to be precise. What are the possible interval in music? Here we don't care about major or minor leaps, major or minor thirds, just the number, the numerical relationship. A voice, a bass, a note can play a unison, but it can also play a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, a seventh, and an octave. If it's playing a unison, it's just repeating itself. Then we have the third leap, the third, and the sixth, which is case number 1. Then we have the fifth and the fourth, which are case number 2. So the only remaining case is the second or the seventh, which is case number 3. So when the bass moves up a second, or down a seventh, this way, or up a seventh, like from D to C, or down a second, in that case there are 0 common notes. So now the principle is that you should start, so it's not so often, it's not so common to find down, so the 7th lip, let's say, unless it is part of a diminution, but we are not talking about diminutions, because if I do the bass is moving up a second. So in that case, consider the up a second movement. We should do counter motion with all the other voices, since there are no common notes. So if we have 3, 5, and 8, we must do counter motion. Fa, mi. So the 3rd becomes the octave, the 5th becomes the 3rd, and the octave becomes the 5th. Here, let's say saying counter motion is not the most correct thing, because then would be direct motion. But this, first of all, works. There are no problems in this connection. So let's say case number 1, if we move down as we did before, this works. But it is even true that in this second case, because the bass is moving down, we can even do this without any problem, because at the end the bass is jumping down. So this is less common, but can be correct, can be understood as correct. The same here. So this is 2nd up and then 7th down, not so often used. Here we have to start from the 2nd down. Yes, this is not the best example because we have the diminished triad, so let's do this. Redo. Okay. Counter motion, re, mi. So 3, 5, and 8. If the bass is moving down, the 3 upper voices will do counter motion ascending. 3, 8, and 5, that way. The same in the other example. So from this position, we can move up following the same movement. At the same time, we can move down. So if we want to do true counter motion, we should do the following thing. Someone could say that D to C and D to C, they're parallel octaves, but no, they're counter motion, as you can see. So even this could be acceptable. And that's the 7th up lip. Good. So now with this knowledge we can better understand why. So what's the origin of these mistakes? Here the bass is leaping down, so it's, of course, if you leap down with the same lip of the bass, you'll make a mistake. The second line is correct, so this is the best way to play it. Indeed, we have counter motion here, look, followed by another counter motion, and then even here actually there's counter motion. He didn't mark the mistake, but these are other consecutives, parallel 5th and parallel octaves, G to A and C to D. Indeed, there is counter motion here as well. And the final resolution. Here it is. Now, in the next video, we'll continue our journey with chapter 8 on the figured thorough bass. See you.
Do you want to learn how to compose music in the Renaissance or Baroque style? If you're at the beginning of your musical journey, or a professional looking to deepen your knowledge of early music, the best path may be a guided integrated course.
Composing in the style of the 16th century or the 17th and 18th century requires much more than knowing harmony and counterpoint. You need to navigate a vast world, including Solmization, Fugue, Cantus, Firmus, Mensural notation, Partimenti, dances, chorales and more. To avoid getting lost, you need an experienced guide, a musicus practicus who knows the path, walks beside you step by step, and helps you overcome each challenge with tailored exercises, attentive feedback, and continuous dialogue. Have a question about a topic? We'll discuss it. Stuck on an exercise? We'll work through it together. Want to go deeper into a subject? We'll tackle it with focus. Every month I accept a limited number of apprentice musicians like you for a program of personalized one-to-one lessons where I guide them in learning to compose in the Renaissance and Baroque style. How it works? During our one-to-one lessons we focus on 2 and 3 voice composition, counterpoint and partimenti, practical exercises on historical style, schemata, cadences, voice leading, models, patterns, and much more. During the week, you'll also follow recorded lessons on repertoire analysis, pattern structure, tones and modes in polyphony, rhythm of historical dances, and everything else you need to progress. This way, each individual lesson becomes focused, effective, and productive. If you'd like to apply for the musical apprenticeship program, go to the link and fill out the form telling me your musical background, studies, experiences, instruments, what you play, your current skill, what you can compose, if you know partimenti, chorales, anything else, and your goals, what you would like to learn in the short, medium and long term. I'll personally read your message and get back to you within 24 hours to let you know how we can work together. Don't miss the spot and learn to compose music as if you had lived in the Renaissance or in the Baroque.